Goedendag, hoe gaat het met you? In this video, I am going to discuss the Netherlands, the land of bicycles, gorgeous tulip fields, traditional cheese markets, Baroque cityscapes, interesting wooden clogs, rustic windmills, world-famous masters of art like Van Gogh and Rembrandt, and of course, the famous Dutch canals. The Kingdom of Netherlands is made up of four constituent countries: Aruba, Curaçao, Sint Maarten, and Netherlands, which is the main constituent country of the four, accounting for 98% of the kingdom's population and land area. The Netherlands is located in Western Europe with three special municipalities in the Caribbean: Bonaire, Saba, and Sint Eustatius. The European part of Netherlands borders Germany to the east, Belgium to the south, and the North Sea to the northwest, where it shares maritime borders with Belgium, United Kingdom, and Germany. The three most important cities in the Netherlands are Amsterdam, The Hague, and Rotterdam, where Amsterdam is the country's capital, The Hague is the Dutch seat of government and parliament, and Rotterdam is the largest port in Europe. Rotterdam was also the world's largest port between 1962 and 2004. The name Netherlands literally translates to lower countries, as the country is made up of mostly low and flat land, with only about 50% land exceeding 1 meter above sea level. Most of the areas below sea level are man-made or reclaimed, which currently amounts to about 17% of the landmass of the country. With a high population density of 408 people per kilometer square, it is the third country in the world to have an elected parliament, and since 1848, it has been governed as a parliamentary democracy as well as a constitutional monarchy, organized into a unitary state. The Netherlands is known as a very liberal and socially tolerant state, having legalized abortion, prostitution, and euthanasia, while maintaining a progressive drugs policy. In 2001, it became the world's first country to legalize same-sex marriages. The Indian judiciary administers a common law system of legal jurisdiction in which customs, precedents, and legislation all codify the law of the land. It has in part inherited the legacy of the legal system established by the colonial powers and the princely states since the mid-19th century, and has partly retained characteristics of practices from the ancient and medieval times. The Netherlands is a civil law country. Its laws are written and the application of customary law is exceptional. The role of case law is small in theory, although in practice it is impossible to understand the law in many fields without also taking into account the relevant case laws. The Dutch system of law is based on French civil code with influences from Roman law and traditional Dutch customary law. The new civil law books, which went into force in 1992, were heavily influenced by German law. The Ministry of Security and Justice is the main institution when it comes to Dutch law. In India, the nexus between local politics, legal administration, and businesses can be very hazy, with fortunes potentially swaying on every election cycle. Investment decisions don't just revolve around attractive tax benefits, and larger tax impacts on the environment, society, and stakeholders is generally taken into account. Risks are often transferred to insurers or through covenants, but an insurance policy does not necessarily ensure that you are sufficiently hedged against all odds. These factors give rise to questions over the transparency and India's legal and judiciary system about how equipped the country is to impart fairness. The legal process in India can also be time-consuming and cumbersome. Dutch law, broadly, relies on the principles of reasonableness and fairness. The law refers to the principles of bona fides or good faith, insofar it concerns the duty to observe reasonable social and commercial standards of normal and fair dealing in trade and businesses. Historically, Dutch law students thought for decades that it was wrong to stick to the textual meaning of statutory provisions, since it was much more important that the law at all times should produce a fair and reasonable outcome. The new Dutch Civil Code is largely a reflection of this ideology. The concept of good faith leaks as a result into all branches of Dutch civil law, and especially into the law of obligations and contracts. This provides a sound and comfortable legal environment for businesses to operate efficiently in the Netherlands. King Willem-Alexander van Oranje-Nassau is the current nominal head of the state, with mostly representative functions. There are three tiers of the government at the national level, provincial level, and local or municipal level. The legislature consists of a democratically elected parliament made up of two chambers, the lower house and the Senate. The Dutch are usually governed by a coalition of political parties, and the Prime Minister, currently Mark Rutte, usually belongs to the party that wins maximum seats in the elections. The nation has previously been nicknamed the Land of Compromise due to its reliance on coalitions. From 1998 to 2002, the government was led by the Purple Coalition made up of three parties: Labour, Liberal, and Democrats 66. During this period, the government introduced legislation on abortion, euthanasia, and gay marriage. The Purple Coalition also marked a period of remarkable economic prosperity in Netherlands. After several years of coalitions of different political parties, in 2010, the first Root cabinet was formed as a minority government created by VVD or People's Party for Freedom and Democracy and CDA or Christian Democratic Appeal. In the following elections of 2012, the second Root cabinet was formed by the People's Party for Freedom and Democracy and the Labour Party. As did the previous government, the new government has also focused on encouraging lower wage inflation and boosting the participation and employment rates. The latter objective stems from the fact that the Netherlands will experience an aging of its population over the coming decade with substantial fiscal implications. Although the widespread use of funded occupational pension schemes means that these fiscal costs will be lower in the Netherlands than in many other EU countries, they will still be significant. Participation and employment are also higher than in most other countries of the European Union, but this is partly because of the prevalence of part-time jobs. The previous government can claim some success in holding down wage costs and introducing measures that should increase incentives to participate in the labour market. The new government is likely to continue to keep down wage costs and increase labour market participation as well. The Netherlands has a tradition of coalition governments and consensus seeking. However, this tradition has not prevented decisive and clear policies from being agreed when necessary. Although social solidarity is a feature of the Netherlands, this is combined with a belief in the efficacy of free markets, both domestically and internationally, which the courts are inclined to uphold. The Netherlands has a good record in upholding human rights. These established traditions provide a degree of assurance that the legal and institutional framework will remain favorable for businesses, despite phases of relative political instability and continued social tensions. The Netherlands has a market-based mixed economy, ranking 17th out of 177 countries according to the Index of Economic Freedom. It had the 13th highest per capita income in the world in 2014, according to the International Monetary Fund. In 2014, the United Nations World Happiness Report ranked the Netherlands as the 7th happiest country in the world, reflecting its high quality of life. The Dutch economy is highly dependent on economic developments in Europe. As the country earns a large part of the national income through exports, financial stability and growth in Europe are therefore vital to the Netherlands. Ranked number 8 in Europe by Bloomberg's Best Countries for Business, the Netherlands is a world-class business destination. Its strategic location at Europe's front door provides the perfect springboard into the European market. Adding to that, the supportive corporate tax structure, highly educated multilingual workforce, and superior logistics and technology infrastructure are the reasons why so many multinational businesses, from small and medium-sized to Fortune 500 leaders, have all chosen the Netherlands as their gateway to Europe. The risk of doing business in the Netherlands is very low. Policies in most areas are likely to remain positive with respect to their impact on the business environment. As well as more favorable macroeconomic conditions, the Netherlands' policy on foreign investment, financing conditions in foreign trade, and exchange controls will all remain particularly favorable relative to its competitors. The changes in the composition of the government usually does not have a major impact on business operations. An overshooting of public spending leading to tax increases is highly unlikely, levels of corruption and bureaucracy are low, the quality of the judiciary is high, and the legal code is very well developed. Democracy is well established, but the outlook for political stability is dented by the likelihood of greater community tensions. As in many other countries, there is a moderate threat of Islamic terrorism. The Netherlands has a strong image: seafaring, wooden shoes, and permissiveness. These stereotypes do point to certain essential features of the Dutch society and economy. The structure of the Dutch business system resembles the shape of an hourglass. On the one hand, there are huge multinationals like Shell, Unilever, and Philips that employ more than 20,000 people, and on the other hand, there are numerous small to medium sized enterprises. The presence of these large multinational enterprises underlines the strong international orientation of the Dutch business. Based with a small domestic market, many firms of the Netherlands are dependent on foreign markets for their economic survival, and exports form a huge percentage of their national income. Since the 1940s, Dutch agriculture has become highly mechanized and technologically sophisticated. Despite the small size of the country, the Netherlands is the world's third largest exporter of agricultural products. The main industries in the Netherlands are agribusiness, metal and engineering products, electric machinery and equipment, chemicals, petroleum, construction, and microelectronics. The Dutch have significant oil and natural gas fields in the North Sea. This forms the basis for the nation's large energy industry, and most of the kingdom's energy resources are exported to the other European Union countries. The Dutch economy is dominated by the service sector. The main segments of this sector are transportation, goods distribution, financial services, and tourism. One of the areas of greatest growth is telecommunications and computer services. The traditional strengths of the Netherlands seem to reside in the distributive and financial series and not in areas of heavy industry. The Dutch East India Company, founded in 1602, was the first joint stock company to get a fixed capital stock, and as a result, continuous trade in company stock occurred in Amsterdam, making it the first stock exchange of the world. A further important characteristic of the Dutch business system is the considerable separation of ownership from control. There are few family-owned businesses, and state-owned companies are equally rare. The Netherlands has a long tradition of negotiation, which lives on in close and regular contacts between trade unions, employers' organizations, and government. It is a member of all major international organizations. Ranked as the 20th best place in the world to start a business by the World Bank Group, the Netherlands is an attractive base for doing business and for investment. Its open and international outlook, well-educated workforce, and strategic location are contributors. The attractive fiscal climate and technological infrastructure create favorable propositions for international businesses. The Indian banking sector is broadly classified into scheduled banks and non-scheduled banks. The scheduled banks are those which are included in the second schedule of the Reserve Bank of India, which is the central bank and the supreme monetary authority. The scheduled banks are further classified into nationalized banks, State Banks of India and its associates, regional rural banks, foreign banks, and other Indian private sector banks. The Dutch National Bank is responsible for the money flow in the Netherlands. DNB is an independent administrative body, part of the European system of central banks. The banking system in the Netherlands includes the commercial banks, saving banks, credit unions, and mortgage banks. The most important banks in the Netherlands are ING Bank and ABN AMRO, consisting of Fortis, RBS, and BSCH. Banks in India are unorganized and do not have any contact with other sections of the banking world. They combine banking with trading and commission business and thus have introduced trade risks into their banking business. They do not distinguish between short-term and long-term finance and also between the purpose of finance. They do not give receipts in most cases, and interest which they charge is out of proportion to the rate of interest charged by other banking institutions in the country. On the other hand, one of the most important objectives of the Dutch banks is to keep prices stable and thereby to contain inflation. Dutch banks offer an extensive range of financial services. Some are specialized, while others offer an extremely wide range of services. The Dutch government offers a number of incentive schemes in various sectors to support companies in their business operations. Foreign entrepreneurs who set up companies in the Netherlands and register their companies with the Dutch Chamber of Commerce can also apply for a number of incentive schemes. Culturally, the Netherlands has an egalitarian society where children are raised without any biases. This egalitarian outlook is carried over into the workplace. Even in hierarchical organizations, every person has a right to their opinion and to have it heard. The Dutch work hard in their 36 to 40-hour week and are famous for the many hours a week they spend in meetings. Being very organized and time conscious, one must plan business appointments up to 4 weeks ahead with bosses, clients, and colleagues. The Dutch are detail-oriented and want to understand every innuendo before committing to an agreement. According to the 2011 Bribe Payers Report of Transparency International, Dutch businesses are the most ethical. According to another study, the Dutch work the least number of hours amongst all the European Union countries but have the highest productivity rate in their work. This goes to show that the Dutch possess a high degree of discipline, dedication, education, and skills. To conclude, it can be said that the Netherlands seems to be one of the best countries to work and live in, as there is a high standard of living, political, economical, and social freedom, positive work culture, promising job opportunities, and an overall work life balance.